Available now on Blu-ray and DVD from VCI Entertainment is the 2019 indie comedy drama road picture Appleseed, directed by, written by, and starring Michael Worth, and co-starring in his final role, Rance Howard. If you don't know Rance Howard, he was the father of Ron Howard and Clint Howard. And Rance Howard is a guy I've always liked. He's always appeared in really small roles here and there, usually these little down home, simple folk kind of roles. And I just, every time he's ever been in anything, I've liked him. And when I received this, I was excited. I'm like, oh, cool, it's a Rance Howard movie. And it was really good, actually. I'll say that I was a little dubious when I popped this in because for some reason my experience is that films that are written by, directed by, and starring somebody, they tend in my experience to be sort of vanity projects or films that where the actor maybe isn't that great and they built a film for themselves and all this other stuff. So I went into this kind of worried that would be the case. That was not the case for this film. This film was really well made and apparently made with a very tiny crew and a very short shooting schedule. This was a low budget film, but the visuals do not betray that. It looks gorgeous. It is really impressive what, a simple digital camera, and I say simple, not a giant Panavision setup, and drones can do these days. And this film is beautiful to look at, really, really nicely shot. Performances are good across the board. It's a mix of actors you recognize in small parts and actors you might not recognize in larger parts, but everybody is good. It just had a really kind of nice, simple human drama, sweet nature to it. On the commentary track, the director Worth says that he really was trying to go for films of the 70s that he loved, like Scarecrow, which is not a very well-known movie, but a solid Gene Hackman, Al Pacino, two people on the road movie. And that's what this is. So what is this film about, by God? It's about 120 minutes. This film is about Michael Worth portrays a man named Prince, and he's a guy who lives somewhere in the Southwest, and he's kind of down on his luck. He's got no job. His girlfriend has just left him, and he gets home to tell his father about some of his troubles, and his father has recently just passed away, like moments before he walks in. So with nothing left to, not to say to live for, but with nothing left and with a huge chip on his shoulder, he decides he's going to go back home to Vermont, where he grew up in his hometown, and rob the bank there because the bank wouldn't give them a break and wouldn't help them out and wouldn't listen to them when they needed assistance. So he's going to go home and rob his hometown bank. Problem is he has no money. And to get from somewhere in the Southwest, let's say Arizona or so, or Southern California to Vermont, that's all the way across the country, and gas costs money. Boy, does it ever. So what happens is Worth comes across at a train station or railroad tracks Rance Howard, who's a man named Carl, who's this simple guy with a simple kind of worn suit and a suitcase, who's looking to get to Nova Scotia. That's his mission, is to get to Nova Scotia, and he's going to take a train, but Worth says, well, if you've got some cash and you want to pay for the gas and the hotels and the meals, I will provide you transportation, expedient transportation to Nova Scotia, or at least to Vermont, where I'm headed. So this uneasy alliance, not uneasy, it's uneasy on Worth's part, or the Prince character, because I don't want to keep saying, I'll say Worth, because if I say Prince, you're going to think the man who wore purple and was in Purple Rain. That's not what this movie's about. Worth's character is kind of a very unhappy, depressed guy with a chip on his shoulder. He's reluctantly taking this kind of quirky, happy-go-lucky, very, very eloquent, given to making proclamations and prophesiations and sermonizing on occasion, older man with him, because it's basically literally his meal ticket and his ticket to get home to rob a bank. So what we have here is the standard road movie formula, where there stops along the way, little adventures, little scrapes, ups and downs, and in the end they learn to respect each other, and they both have sort of grown through this experience, not to give anything away, which I won't. And Rance Howard is just wonderful in this. It's nice to see him, as I said, have so much screen time in a film, and the cameos in this film, the smaller roles, are great too. You have Clint Howard, brother of Ron Howard, son of Rance Howard, playing Rance Howard's son in a really nice section of the film. Apparently it was the first time they'd ever worked together playing father and son, and a lot of what was going on between them in the scene was kind of not based on their lives, but spoke to them as a father and a son. And it's really cool to see Clint Howard act dramatically, because he's usually given roles where he's kind of weird and crazy, and he's a little bit of that, a little silly when you first meet him in this, but it gets serious and it's really well done. You see Adrienne Barbeau as a waitress in a diner. You see Robby Benson as an old friend of Rance Howard, who now runs this sort of Est kind of retreat somewhere in Colorado. Actually, the Robby Benson bit, there is a scene, and it was intentional. When I watched it, I didn't know, but I watched the extras on this film because I enjoyed it, and I found out it was true. There's a scene with Robby Benson and Rance Howard talking on a bridge, and I'm like, he's not going to jump off the bridge, is he? And it was indeed apparently an ode to Billy Joe reference in this film that they made because the director was a huge Robby Benson fan and a huge fan of Ode to Billy Joel. Really cool to see, not Billy Joel, Billy Joe. Really cool to see Robby Benson again. I hadn't seen him in it. He was huge for a while, and then he sort of moved into, being the voice of Beast and Beauty and the Beast, the Disney classic, and doing a lot of directing and voiceover work. And it's the first time I'd seen him on camera, and the man still looks far younger than his years, and is still really good. So overall, it's this journey. There were some times where I did spot, okay, when you shoot a road movie, unless you have a really huge budget, you don't really shoot real time going in order across the country. You pick and choose. Even my favorite movie, I'm going to reference Cannonball Run in this review because why not? Cannonball Run is supposed to go from Connecticut to California. They shot like in 2 places, maybe 3, because it's just too expensive. So that's what this movie did. They shot in Arizona and in Vermont. And there were a couple moments where something was supposed to be in another part of the country, and I was like, that's Vermont. I could spot, there's supposed to be somewhere in the Midwest or Oklahoma, and there's storefront that has a sign that says Vermont maple syrup, and I'm like, there's no reason they would have that sign in Oklahoma. And then I looked, and you could see some Vermont license plates. But this is stuff that you would, and they use the Bethel Drive-In, which is in Vermont, and I'm a fan of drive-ins, and I'm from that area originally, so I could spy that as not being where they said it was going to be. But it doesn't matter, because anybody unless you're from Vermont and really paying too close attention, you wouldn't notice that. I just thought it was amusing while it went. This is a really fine film, It's an indie film. It's a sleeper, that they would call it in the old days, so it's not people, jumping on a moving train. Although technically they do jump on a moving train. You just don't see them jump on it. They do ride the rails at some point. It's not somebody jumping a dirt bike onto a moving train while the werewolf is on fire behind them. Nothing gets really outrageous. It's very centered in reality, and it's just a movie about people. And as I say, the older I get, the more I greatly appreciate movies that are just about people and aren't ridiculous and outrageous and have giant monsters in it. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because I love movies with giant monsters in them. Anyway, Appleseed, available on DVD and Blu-ray. So what do you get in this set? I'll show you. You get a disc that has the cover that says Appleseed, and it shows the stars. And then on the back, it lists what's on it. And then inside, what's in it is, it's a 2-disc set, actually, from VCI. So disc 1 with the film is a Blu-ray, disc 2 with supplements is a DVD, and I'm going to tell you what it's all about with those extras. So what do we got? We have the movie on disc 1. We have a commentary with the director on disc 1 that's really good, and really, he comes off as a really cool, really nice guy who loved Rance Howard, had worked with him in the past, and really was thrilled to be able to have him in his film, which turned out to be, as I say, his last film. Apparently he fell ill. He wasn't doing well toward the end of the film. He fell ill right after they wrapped, and he never lived to see the final product. So on disc 1, you get that commentary, you get a making of that's 24 minutes that's really cool and well done. Disc 2 is a DVD. You get a director's cut of the film, which is 7 minutes longer. You get a tribute to Rance Howard that's 3 minutes, and it's all just scenes from the film. Apparently, this was shown at his memorial service at Warner Brothers, it says in the press materials. You get Clint Howard on KTLA, local LA TV station, promoting the film. So it's him in the studio with the anchors, talking a little bit about Gentle Ben, and then talking a lot about his father in this movie. And then you get Rance Howard on Michael directing. That is a 4-minute video that was created when they were trying to crowdfund for the production of this film. And it was after screening another film that they had done together, or another film that Worth had directed, and it's Rance Howard just talking for 4 minutes about how much he likes Michael as an actor and as a director. And then you get trailers for the movie that run 2 minutes. It's like a 1.5-minute trailer and a 30-second spot. And that's it. So this is a film that will probably go way under most people's radar. Probably most people don't even know who Rance Howard is. But if you're like me, or if you like me, I thank you. If you're like me and you like character actors and you've appreciated Rance Howard's work, this is really nice. Some of the dialogue, I will say, in the film feels very written. That's just the nature of the beast sometimes. Sometimes people are saying things and they soliloquize a little, and it doesn't quite seem natural that they would talk that way. But how much goodwill and how sweet this film was overall really kind of outweighed any of that stuff for me. And it's just a really nice movie. I want to mention arguably the best scene in the film. So Rance Howard, part of his deal is that he's going on this journey. He calls it the Blue Plate Special, and it's his map of where he wants to stop to sort of we find out to make good on things that he feels like were mistakes in his past, to sort of right wrongs or apologize to people. One of those he goes to is this woman who was involved in an incident that he was involved in 50 years earlier that he felt very bad about. So he finds her, and she's in a retirement home, and she clearly, I don't want to give much away, but she has Alzheimer's. So he's trying to apologize to her, and she is not really remembering what he's talking about. The scene felt so amazingly real that I was positive that they found a woman who actually did have Alzheimer's. It was shot like the woman didn't even know the camera was there. And it was just wonderful, between Howard sort of trying to stick to his script, but also improvising a little bit, and this woman's reaction to what he was saying. It was like the film of reality, of fantasy, was peeled back, and you were just watching two actual people talking, which is kind of what it was. It turns out that was the director's grandmother, who did have dementia, and she was, a willing participant in this. But when it came time to roll film, she was basically just talking to Rance Howard, and it's a great moment. It's a really wonderful moment. It was probably the best part of the film. Not that I wouldn't say that the whole film wasn't good. Anyway, I've rambled about this long enough. Available on DVD and Blu-ray from VCI is Appleseed.